Good morning, my brothers and sisters. Welcome to episode number 103 in the book of Genesis. We're officially in Genesis 22, which is the story, the whole chapter is the story about Isaac Abraham sacrificing his son Isaac. But we're going to turn to the New Testament and sort of get the interpretation of that whole passage. I was thinking this morning about Abraham's license plate on his car. And what would his license plate say? In other words, what is his motto? I get the kick. Always get a kick out of the license plate battle that you'll notice between North Carolina and Ohio. North Carolina, where the Wright brothers flew at Kitty Hawk, their whole state motto, and it's on their license plate, is "First in Flight." Ohio takes offense to that because the Wright brothers were from Ohio and the plane was invented and designed and tested in Ohio, but finally flew in Kitty Hawk. Anyway, back to Abraham. What would Abraham's license plate say? I think it would say "First in faith," not "first in flight," "first in faith." Now, we all have a little bit of faith, right? That the sun's going to come up tomorrow, that when I eat food, it's going to nourish my body. But there's something special about Abraham's faith that would make it license plate worthy, and that is, it is resurrection level faith. So if there was room on the license plate, I think his license plate would say "First in faith," but specifically "First in resurrection faith." Now, the story here is from Genesis chapter 22. I'm just going to read the first verse. After these things, God tested Abraham and said to him, "Abraham," and he said, "Here I am." He said, "Take your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah and offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains of which I tell you." So today we're going to look towards the New Testament for the proper interpretation of an Old Testament passage. So lovers of the Old Testament should be frequent users of the New Testament, and lovers of the New Testament should be frequent users of the Old Testament. Why is that? Well, because in Hebrews chapter 11, it really explains the bottom line of what Abraham was thinking in going and sacrificing his son, which sounds so terrible at face value. In Hebrews chapter 11, verse 17 through 19, it says, "By faith Abraham, when he was tested," so it's going to be a test, we'll talk about that in a second, "offered up Isaac, and he who had received the promises was in the act of offering up his only son, of whom it was said, 'Through Isaac your offspring shall be named.'" And then now it tells you what Abraham was thinking when he had the knife going. He considered that God was able even to raise him from the dead. He considered that God was able even to raise Isaac from the dead, from which, figuratively speaking, he did receive him back. All right, so let's first talk about testing versus tempting. So testing is something God does. Tempting is something God does not do. So testing is where God checks our commitment, and it gives us an opportunity to succeed. And we see here in this story that God is inside this event, and it's going to result and can result in personal character being strengthened and a relationship with God that is enhanced. Now, tempting is different than that. Tempting is purely an opportunity to fail. It can cause us to sin, and God does not do this. We do this to ourselves. We are the one that generate the temptation. And rather than God being inside that event, God's outside that event, and it gives us an opportunity for our personal character to be weakened and a relationship to be hindered. So this is not temptation. This one is a testing. And we know that because God's present there. He sees, he speaks, he hears, and God is in this. And again, we see, which has been one of our themes in Genesis, is God is leaning into humanity, and specifically with Abraham. And we get this introduction in this story of resurrection level faith. So Abraham is believing that he and Isaac are coming back to the servants. So in Genesis 22:5 it says, "Then Abraham said to the young men that were accompanying him to go on this sacrifice trip, he said to the young men, 'Stay here with the donkey, and I and the boy will go over there and worship and come to you again.'" So Abraham believes that the Old Testament also says that we're going to go worship, we're going to go sacrifice. It's going to be a sacrifice of Isaac. He's going to be resurrected from the dead, and then we're going to come back to you. So Abraham considered this about God, that God was even able to raise Isaac from the dead. So again, we see here that it's raising from the dead faith. It says it in the New Testament. And stay here with the donkey. I and the boy will go over there and worship and come again to you. So it says it both in the Old Testament and the New Testament. So of note, we are now Abraham's children of faith, in his family of faith, if we do what? If we demonstrate the same kind of faith. That is, the same object of faith. That's God. The same object of faith regarding his power, the resurrections. So many of your closest connections with God have come in the birthing suite. So it's God bringing forth life from nothing the first time. Similarly, Abraham here considers, before he has all the information, that's kind of the definition of faith, whether God can bring forth life, not from nothing, but from something that is dead. So can you, Lord, El Shaddai, the Lord of all power, do you have this particular power to bring forth life? Specifically, do you have the power to bring forth life from death? So back to Abraham's license plate. I think it's on Abraham's license plate, first in resurrection faith. Now here's the challenge. It's for every one of us now. So every podcast listener has to ask this question. Every Jew, every Muslim, every Christian, every Catholic, every Protestant, every Asian, African, North American, European must ask this question. Do I have resurrection faith? So this is a test to check our commitment to the Lord. It's an opportunity to succeed. We know that God is in this question. And if you answer it right, your personal character can be strengthened. Your relationship God can be enhanced. So yes, it's on Abraham's license plate. He was first in resurrection faith. That's the good news. The question for us is, what will be on my license plate? Will we be second or 1,000th in the same kind of resurrection faith? Ask that today. Thanks for listening.